The crystal doors of the Dragon King's throne room opened with a sound like breaking glass. Ambassador Li Tae-min stumbled through the entrance, his diplomatic uniform torn and stained with blood that had dried to a dark brown color. His left arm hung at an odd angle, and deep cuts crossed his face like a map of pain. Emperor Ryu Dalsang looked up from the holographic reports floating above his massive clawed hand. The ancient dragon ruler stood nearly 4 meters tall, his scales shifting from deep emerald to gold in the throne room's soft light. His yellow eyes, each the size of a dinner plate, focused on the human who had served him faithfully for 7 long years. "Taemin," the Dragon King's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You have returned." The human ambassador tried to stand straight, tried to show the same confidence he had displayed in countless negotiations, but his legs shook like leaves in a storm, and he fell to one knee on the polished floor. His breathing came in short. Painful gasps. "Your Majesty," Taemin whispered, his voice cracked and broken. "I have failed you." Ryu Dalsang's massive head tilted slightly. In all the years he had known this human, he had never heard such defeat in Taemin's voice. The ambassador had faced down war fleets, had negotiated peace between species that had fought for centuries, had walked into rooms where every other being wanted to kill him, and emerged with trade agreements that made everyone rich. "Tell me what happened," the Dragon King commanded, his voice gentler now. Taemin's hands trembled as he tried to speak. The words came out in broken pieces like shards of glass falling from his lips. "The Mantis Collective. They said they wanted to negotiate. Said they were ready to discuss the mining rights in the Outer Rim." The dragon's eyes narrowed. The Mantis Collective was a group of insect-like beings who ruled through fear and pain. They had recently expanded their territory, taking over 3 star systems through brutal conquest. When they had requested human diplomatic assistance, it had seemed like progress. "I went to their command ship as planned," Taemin continued, his voice growing smaller. "Ambassador Kim Jun-ho warned me, said it felt wrong, but I thought I could handle it." Ryu Dalsang leaned forward on his throne. The movement caused the crystal formations around the room to sing softly, a musical sound that usually brought peace. Today, it only made the silence that followed more terrible. "They never intended to negotiate," Taemin said, touching the worst of his facial wounds with shaking fingers. "It was a trap. They wanted to study how humans break under pressure. They said humans were becoming too important in galactic politics, that other species trusted us too much." The Dragon King's claws scraped against his throne's armrests, leaving deep grooves in the ancient stone. He had chosen humans as his ambassadors for one specific reason: they did not break. Other species would bend under pressure, would compromise. Their principles, when threatened, would abandon their duties when faced with pain. But humans were different. They had something the dragon had rarely seen in his 1,000 years of life: an unbreakable spirit. "For 6 days they kept me in their torture chambers," Taemin continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "They used machines that caused pain without leaving permanent damage. They showed me images of human colonies burning. They told me that every human diplomat in the galaxy would suffer the same fate unless we stopped interfering in alien politics." The massive dragon rose from his throne, his full height casting shadows across the crystal chamber. His scales had shifted from gold to deep red, a color that meant danger in draconian culture. The temperature in the room began to rise. "They broke me," Taemin said, and then he began to cry. The sound was terrible, not the tears of sadness, but the broken sobs of a spirit that had been shattered like fine glass. "I told them everything. Every negotiation tactic we use, every psychological weakness of the species we work with, every secret the human diplomatic corps has learned over the past 50 years. Ryu Dalsang's roar shook the entire palace. Crystal. Formations cracked and fell from the ceiling. Guard dragons throughout the building lifted their heads in alarm. The sound carried for kilometers, a noise of pure rage that made every living thing in the capital city freeze in terror. But when he looked down at his human ambassador, still kneeling on the floor with tears streaming down his damaged face, the Dragon King's expression changed. He had seen many beings broken by torture over the centuries. Most never recovered. They lived the rest of their lives as shadows, afraid of their own reflections. Yet here was Tai Min, who had somehow found the strength to escape his captors and travel across 3-star systems to make his report. Even, broken, even shattered, the human had returned to fulfill his duty. "You did not fail me," Ryu Dalsang said, his voice now soft as silk. "You survived. That alone shows strength beyond measure." "But the information they took from me," Tai Min said, struggling to his feet. "They will use it to hurt other humans. Other diplomats. I have endangered every human in the galaxy." The Dragon King stepped down from his throne, his massive form moving with surprising grace. He stopped just in front of the human, towering over him like a living mountain. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of absolute certainty. "The Mantis Collective made one critical error in their calculations," he said. "They assumed that breaking one human would weaken all humans. They do not understand that the opposite is true. When humans are threatened, when they are hurt, when they are pushed beyond their limits, they do not become weaker. They become more dangerous." Tai Min looked up at his emperor with confused, pain-filled eyes. "They also made another mistake," Ryu Dalsang continued, his scales now shifting to a color that few beings had ever seen. Pure white, the color of absolute cold, the color that meant death was coming. "They hurt someone under my protection, someone I have grown to respect. Someone I consider more than just an employee." The Dragon King's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire chamber. "They hurt my friend." "What are you going to do?" Tai Min asked. Ryu Dalsang's smile revealed teeth the size of swords. "I am going to show the galaxy what happens when someone breaks a human under the protection of dragons. And then, my dear ambassador, we are going to rebuild you into something stronger than you ever were before." The crystal doors closed behind them as the Dragon King helped his broken human friend toward the medical chambers. Neither of them knew that this moment would be remembered as the beginning of a new age in galactic politics. An age where humanity would rise from its knees to stand as equals among the stars. The medical bay of the Dragon Palace had never treated a human before. Dr. Park So-young, the Emperor's most trusted healer, worked carefully over Ambassador Tai Min's broken body. Her small hands moved with precise skill as she cleaned his wounds and set his broken bones. "The physical damage will heal," she said to Emperor Ryu Dalsang, who stood watching from the doorway. His massive form barely fit through the entrance designed for smaller beings, but the damage to his mind will take much longer. The Dragon King's eyes never left his ambassador's sleeping form. Tai Min looked so small on the medical table, his face pale and drawn. Dark circles ringed his eyes, and even in sleep, his body trembled with remembered pain. "How long?" Ryu Dalsang asked. "Months, maybe years," Dr. Park replied honestly. "The Mantis used psychological torture methods designed specifically to break human minds. They studied your people carefully before they acted. The dragon's claws scraped against the metal doorframe, leaving deep scratches. Then they planned this attack for a long time. Yes, Your Majesty, this was not a random act of violence. This was a calculated assault on humanity's role in galactic politics." Ryu Dalsang turned away from the medical bay, his mind working through the implications. If the Mantis Collective had planned this attack so carefully, they were not the only ones involved. Other species must have supported them, provided them with information about human psychology. Maybe even helped them plan the trap. He walked through the palace corridors, his heavy footsteps echoing off the crystal walls. Servants and guards bowed as he passed, but he barely noticed them. His thoughts were focused on a single question: who else was involved in this attack on his human diplomats? The answer came sooner than expected. In his private communications chamber, urgent messages waited from across the galaxy. Ambassador Kim Jun-ho reported from the Stellar Republic that their government had suddenly canceled all diplomatic meetings with humans. The official reason was scheduling conflicts, but Jun-ho suspected something more serious. From the Trade Federation, negotiator Choi Min-seo sent word that she had been asked to leave immediately. The spider-like beings who controlled the Federation claimed that human diplomatic methods were no longer compatible with their cultural values. Similar reports came from a dozen other star systems. Human diplomats were being asked to leave, their contracts canceled, their ongoing negotiations suspended. Some were given polite excuses, others were told bluntly that their services were no longer wanted. Emperor Ryu Dal-sang read each message with growing anger. The pattern was clear. The Mantis Collective had not acted alone. This was a coordinated effort to remove human influence from galactic politics. He activated his personal communication system and sent an immediate order to all Dragonfleet commanders. Recall all human diplomatic personnel from non-allied systems immediately. Provide full military escort. Any interference will be considered an act of war against the Draconian Empire. The response was swift. Within hours, dragon warships were moving toward a dozen star systems, their weapons powered and their shields raised. The sight of the massive vessels, each one larger than most space stations, sent a clear message throughout the galaxy. The Dragon King was angry. Back in the medical bay, Tae-min had awakened. He sat on the edge of the medical table, staring at his bandaged hands. Dr. Park had given him medication for the pain, but nothing could ease the hurt in his mind. "I keep thinking about what they showed me," he said quietly when Ryu Dal-sang entered the room. "Images of human colonies burning, children running from attack ships. They said it would all come true if humans didn't stop interfering in galactic politics." "Those images were lies," the Dragon King said firmly. "Fear tactics designed to break your spirit." "But what if they weren't?" Tae-min looked up at his emperor with haunted eyes. "What if my failure puts every human in danger?" Ryu Dal-sang moved closer, his massive form filling half the medical bay. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of a ruler who had commanded star systems for 1,000 years. "Listen to me carefully, my friend. You did not fail. You were betrayed by beings who fear what humanity represents. They fear your ability to find peaceful solutions to problems that other species solve with violence. They fear that you make war unnecessary." "I don't feel peaceful right now," Tae-min said, his voice bitter. "I feel broken." "Good," the dragon replied, surprising the human. "Feeling broken means you understand what was done to you. It means you are angry, and angry humans are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy." Dr. Park looked up from her medical equipment. "Your Majesty, perhaps this is not the best time for—" "This is exactly the right time," Ryu Dal-sang interrupted. "Tae-min needs to understand that his suffering has not weakened humanity. It has revealed the true nature of their enemies." The Dragon King activated a holographic display in the medical bay. It showed a map of the galaxy with various star systems marked in different colors. "Red marks show systems where humans have been asked to leave in the past 3 days, he explained. "Yellow shows systems where human diplomatic missions have been canceled or suspended. Green shows systems that still welcome human diplomats." The map told a clear story. More than half the galaxy had turned against humanity in just 3 days. "They planned this," Tae-min whispered, staring at the display. "Yes, and they made one critical mistake in their planning." Ryu Dal-sang pointed to the green systems on the map. They assumed that all alien species would turn against humans when they saw you could be broken. But look at the green systems, the crystalline hegemony, the plant collective, the machine republics, the ocean worlds alliance. Tae-min studied the map more carefully. Those are all species that humans helped in major conflicts. Exactly. Species that know the true value of human diplomatic skills. They are not abandoning you in your moment of weakness. They are asking for more human diplomats, not fewer. The dragon's scales shifted to a warm gold color, the shade that meant hope in draconian culture. The Mantis Collective and their allies have divided the galaxy for us. They have shown us exactly who our true friends are. Dr. Park finished her work and stepped back. Ambassador Tae-min is stable, but he needs rest. The psychological healing will take time. Time we have, Ryu Dalsang said. But first there is something that must be done. He turned to Tae-min, his yellow eyes burning with determination. I am calling together the largest military fleet in draconian history, not to conquer, but to protect. Every human diplomat, every human colony, every human trade mission will have dragon protection. That could start a war, Tae-min said. No, the Dragon King replied with absolute certainty. It will prevent one. The species that betrayed humanity need to understand that attacking humans means facing dragons. And then, when they realize their mistake, they will come crawling back, begging for human diplomatic help. He moved toward the door, then paused. Rest now, my friend. Heal your body and your mind. Because when you are ready, I have a job for you that will reshape the entire galaxy. As the Dragon King left the medical bay, his roar of determination echoed through the palace. The sound carried a promise that would soon reach every star system in the galaxy. Those who hurt humans under dragon protection would face consequences beyond their imagination. Director General Yoon Ha-neul sat in her office on Earth, watching the emergency reports flood across her desk. The Human Diplomatic Corps headquarters buzzed with activity as messages arrived from across the galaxy. Her assistants moved quickly, between rooms, their faces showing the stress of the crisis. 15 more diplomatic missions have been canceled in the past 6 hours, reported her deputy, Captain Song Woo-jin of the Human Defense Fleet. The pattern is spreading faster than we expected. Yoon Ha-neul studied the holographic display, showing human diplomatic positions throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked canceled missions, yellow showed suspended negotiations, and green indicated active diplomatic work. The red was spreading like a disease. What about casualties? She asked. Ambassador Tae-min was the worst injured, but we have 3 other diplomats in medical care. Ambassador Lee Min-ho was attacked on the trade station Omega. Negotiator Kim Soo-jin barely escaped an assassination attempt in the Outer Rim. They are targeting our people systematically. The Director General stood and walked to the large window overlooking Earth's capital city. Below, millions of humans went about their daily lives, unaware that their species was under attack in the depths of space. Send immediate recall orders to all human diplomatic personnel in hostile systems, she commanded. But do it quietly. We don't want to cause panic. What about the systems that are still friendly to us? Song Woo-jin asked. Double our diplomatic presence there. If some species want to reject human help, others will be happy to receive extra attention. Captain Song pulled up another display. We're already seeing that effect. The crystalline hegemony has requested 5 additional diplomatic teams. The Ocean Worlds Alliance wants human mediators for their upcoming trade conference. The Machine Republics are offering to pay triple rates for human negotiation services. Yoon Ha-neul smiled for the first time in days. The Mantis Collective made a serious mistake. They thought that showing humans could be broken would make everyone fear us less. Instead, they've shown our enemies exactly how valuable we really are. 3 days later, the effects of humanity's diplomatic withdrawal began to show across the galaxy. On the industrial world of Mechanos, two different alien species nearly started shooting each other over a trade dispute that would have taken a human diplomat 5 minutes to resolve. In the Spiral Arm territories, 3 separate wars broke out when human peacekeepers were recalled from border zones. The reports reached Earth through various channels. Some came from alien governments begging for human diplomatic help. Others came from human intelligence networks that monitored galactic politics. All of them told the same story. Without human mediators, the galaxy was becoming a more dangerous place. Meanwhile, in the medical facilities of the Dragon Palace, Ambassador Taemin worked with Dr. Park So-young on his recovery. The physical wounds had healed, but the mental scars remained. However, something new was growing in place of his shattered confidence. "Tell me about the negotiation techniques you used with the Silicon Brotherhood," Dr. Park said during one of their sessions. Taemin's eyes grew focused as he remembered. "They communicate through harmonic frequencies. Most species try to use translators, but that loses the emotional context. I learned to modulate my voice to match their frequency patterns. It made them trust me because I spoke their language properly." And the Hive Collective? They make decisions as a group, but they have individual personalities within the Hive mind. You have to address both the individual and the group simultaneously. Other species just talk to the whole hive and wonder why negotiations fail. Dr. Park made notes as he spoke. These techniques, could they be taught to other humans? Of course. Every human diplomat learns to adapt their communication style to different species. It's basic training. Taemin paused, thinking. "Why do you ask?" "Because Emperor Ryu Dal-sang has been meeting with your Director General Yoon Hanul. They are planning something big." At that moment, Professor Nam Yoon-ji arrived from Earth's Xenopsychology Institute. She was small and quiet, but her mind contained more knowledge about alien psychology than anyone else in human space. "Ambassador Taemin," she said, bowing respectfully, "I need your help with a project. We are creating a complete database of every alien species' negotiation patterns, psychological weaknesses, and communication preferences." Taemin sat up straighter. "What kind of project?" "The kind that will make the Mantis Collective regret ever touching a human diplomat," Professor Nam replied with a cold smile. "They tortured you for information about our diplomatic methods. Now we are going to turn that information into a weapon." Over the following weeks, Taemin worked with Professor Nam and a team of human psychologists to create detailed profiles of every major alien species. They documented how each species made decisions, what they feared most, how they could be persuaded or pressured, and what tactics worked best against them. The information the Mantis had tortured out of Taemin became the foundation for a new kind of diplomatic warfare. Instead of just knowing how to negotiate with aliens, humans would now know how to manipulate them, how to turn them against each other, and how to make them dependent on human services. Captain Song Woo-jin coordinated the military side of the human response. Working closely with Dragon Fleet commanders, he established protective networks around human colonies and diplomatic stations. But more importantly, he began sharing intelligence with alien species that remained friendly to humanity. "The Mantis Collective has been building a secret fleet in the Dark Nebula," he reported to Director General Yoon Hanul. "Our crystal allies confirmed the intelligence. They're preparing for a major military action. Against human colonies? Against everyone who still works with humans. They want to finish what they started with Ambassador Taemin." Yoon Hanul stood at her window again, looking out at Earth's peaceful sky. "Then it's time to show them what happens when you threaten humanity's friends." She activated her emergency communication system, sending a message simultaneously to every human diplomatic station, every Dragon Fleet commander, and every alien government that still trusted human negotiators. "This is Director General Yoon Hanul of the Human Diplomatic Corps. The Mantis Collective believes that breaking one human diplomat will break all of humanity. They are about to learn how wrong they are. All human diplomatic personnel are hereby authorized to use advanced psychological warfare techniques. All friendly alien governments will receive full intelligence sharing about Mantis military plans, and all species that betrayed us will learn what the galaxy looks like without human peacekeepers. The message went out across the galaxy, carried by quantum communication networks and Dragon courier ships. Within hours, every major alien government knew that humanity was no longer playing by the old diplomatic rules. The Mantis Collective had wanted to remove human influence from galactic politics. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous. Humans who were angry, organized, and supported by the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Ambassador Taimin, watching the message from his recovery room in the Dragon Palace, smiled for the first time since his torture. His body might have been broken, but his spirit was rebuilding itself into something stronger than before. They wanted to know how humans break, he said to Dr. Park So-young. Now they're going to learn how humans fight back. 3 months after Ambassador Taimin's return from Mantis captivity, the galaxy began to understand what it meant to live without human diplomats. The first major crisis struck the Rimworld's alliance, where 2 member species started fighting over mining rights that had been peacefully shared for decades. Commander Jacktal of the warrior caste tried to mediate the dispute himself. He had watched human diplomats work many times and thought it looked simple. Within 2 hours, both sides were shooting at each other and threatening to withdraw from the alliance entirely. "Get me a human negotiator," he finally demanded of his communications officer. "Sir, we expelled all human diplomatic personnel 3 months ago, remember? We voted to support the Mantis Collective's position that humans were becoming too influential." Commander Jacktal stared at his officer in disbelief. "Then get me anyone who knows how to contact them." But it was too late. By the time he could arrange communication with the human diplomatic corps, the 2 species had declared war on each other, and the Rim-World's alliance had collapsed. 30 years of peaceful cooperation destroyed in a single day. Similar disasters struck across the galaxy. Trade agreements fell apart without human mediators to resolve disputes. Border conflicts escalated into full wars. Economic partnerships that had brought prosperity to entire star systems crumbled when member species could not agree on basic terms. The Mantis Collective watched these developments with satisfaction. Their leader, Queen Vex Tra, addressed her. "War Council from the hive ship hidden in the dark nebula. The human infection is being cleaned from galactic politics," she announced, her insect voice clicking with pleasure. "Soon, the stronger species will rule again, and the weak will serve or die." But Queen Vex Tra had not anticipated Emperor Ryu Dalsang's response to the crisis. The Dragon King had spent the 3 months building something unprecedented in galactic history. On the neutral moon of Serenitas, construction crews worked around the clock to build the largest conference facility ever created. The structure could hold representatives from every known species, with perfect environmental controls for each different type of being. "You are inviting everyone?" Ambassador Taimin asked, studying the guest list from his recovery room. He was walking again now, and his mind had grown sharp with anger and purpose. "Everyone," Ryu Dalsang confirmed. "Even the species that betrayed humanity, even the Mantis Collective. They will all come because they will be curious about what we are planning." "What are we planning?" The Dragon King's scales shifted to deep gold, the color of absolute confidence. "We are going to put humanity on trial. We are going to let the galaxy judge whether human diplomatic methods are beneficial or harmful to galactic civilization." Taimin looked confused. "That seems dangerous. What if they vote against us?" "Then they will have to explain why the galaxy has become more violent, more chaotic, and less prosperous since they removed human diplomats." Ryu Dalsang's smile showed teeth like swords. The evidence will speak for itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the human preparation for this conference took a different form. Engineer Lee Byung-ho worked with Dragon military planners to create defensive systems around every human colony and diplomatic station. These were not weapons meant for conquest, but shields meant to protect human civilians from the chaos spreading across the galaxy. Strategist Kang Min-ah analyzed intelligence reports from across known space, tracking the movements of Mantis fleets and identifying which other species were secretly supporting them. The network of allies was larger than expected, but it was also more fragile than the Mantis leaders realized. 17 different species are providing supplies or intelligence to the Mantis Collective, she reported to Director General Yoon Hanul. But most of them are only helping because they fear being attacked themselves. If we can break the Mantis military power, their alliance will collapse immediately. Professor Nam Yoon-ji had completed her psychological profiles of every major alien species. The database contained detailed information about how each species made decisions, what motivated them, what they feared, and how they could be influenced. It was the most complete guide to alien psychology ever created, built on the foundation of information the Mantis had tortured from Ambassador Tae-min. Ironic, Professor Nam said as she reviewed the data. They broke him to get information about our diplomatic methods. Now that same information will be used to break their alliance. The most important preparation happened in the Dragon Palace medical facilities, where Ambassador Tae-min worked with a new generation of human diplomats. These were not the peaceful mediators of the past, but psychological warfare specialists, trained in advanced manipulation techniques. Remember, Tae-min told his students, each species has specific psychological triggers. The Silicon Brotherhood values logical consistency above everything else. If you can show them that their position contains contradictions, they will abandon it immediately rather than appear illogical. Young diplomat Oh Soo-jin raised her hand. What about the hive species? Hive minds make decisions through consensus, but they also have individual personalities that can disagree with the group. If you can speak to the individuals within the hive, you can create internal conflict that paralyze their decision-making process. These sessions continued for weeks as Tae-min passed on everything he had learned about alien psychology. But he also taught his students something else: how to recover from psychological torture, how to rebuild a broken spirit, and how to turn pain into strength. The invitations to the great conference went out across the galaxy, carried by Dragon, courier ships that traveled faster than any other vessels. The message was simple: come to Serenitas. Judge for yourselves whether humanity deserves a place in galactic civilization. Queen Vex Tra of the Mantis Collective received her invitation while reviewing plans for attacks on human colonies. She studied the message with her compound eyes, her mandibles clicking thoughtfully. It is obviously a trap, advised her military commander, General Zek-ka. Of course it is a trap, the Queen agreed, but it is also an opportunity. If we can discredit humanity publicly, in front of every major species, then our campaign to remove human influence will be complete. We can finish what we started with the broken ambassador. What Queen Vex Tra did not know was that Emperor Ryu Dalsong had been counting on exactly that response. The Dragon King understood insect psychology better than the Mantis realized. Their pride would never allow them to refuse a direct challenge. As the conference date approached, ships from across the galaxy began arriving at Serenitas. Some came peacefully, others with full military escorts. All of them came with curiosity about what would happen when humanity was put on trial. Ambassador Tae-min stood at the observation deck of a Dragon transport ship, watching Serenitas grow larger as they approached. His body had healed completely, but his mind bore new scars that would never fade. However, those scars had taught him something valuable: how to be strong in a different way than before. "Are you ready for this?" Dr. Park So-young asked, joining him at the viewing port. "I was broken by the Mantis Collective," Tae-min replied, But breaking is not the same as being destroyed. Sometimes things need to break before they can become stronger. The Great Conference was about to begin, and with it, a reckoning that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Great Conference Hall on Serenitas could hold 10,000 beings, but it felt small when filled with representatives from 47 different species. Each delegation sat in specially designed sections that accommodated their unique environmental needs. The air itself was divided into zones with different atmospheric compositions. Ambassador Tai Min walked into the hall beside Emperor Ryu Dalsang, his steps steady and his head held high. The scars on his face had faded but not disappeared, marking him as the human who had survived Mantis torture. Every being in the hall knew his story. Queen Vextra of the Mantis Collective occupied a section designed for insect species, her compound eyes reflecting the hall's lights like jewels. She had brought a full military escort, and their weapons were clearly visible despite conference protocols forbidding them. Director General Yoon Hanul took her place at the human delegation table. Beside her sat Professor Nam Yunji, Captain Song Woo Jin, and a carefully chosen team of human diplomats, including the rising star Oh Soo Jin. Representatives of galactic civilization, Emperor Ryu Dalsang's voice echoed through the hall, amplified by dragon technology that could translate his words into every known language simultaneously. We gather today to judge humanity's role in our shared galaxy. He gestured toward the human delegation. Some say that humans have become too influential in galactic politics, that they manipulate other species through their diplomatic skills, that they represent a threat to the natural order of stronger species ruling weaker ones. Murmurs of agreement came from several sections of the hall. The Mantis delegation clicked their approval loudly. Others say, the Dragon King continued, that humans have brought peace and prosperity to our galaxy through their unique ability to find solutions that benefit all parties. Today we will examine the evidence and reach a conclusion. What followed was meant to be a formal trial, but it quickly became something more chaotic. Representative Gorthak of the warrior caste stood to speak first. Humans are weak, he declared, his voice booming through his section's speakers. They solve problems through talking instead of fighting. This makes other species soft and unprepared for real conflict. Before any human could respond, Representative Silona of the Silicon Brotherhood interrupted. That statement contains a logical fallacy. If humans are weak, how have they successfully mediated conflicts between species that are supposedly stronger? Weakness cannot overcome strength through conversation alone. The Silicon representative makes a valid point, added Ambassador Koralesh of the Ocean Worlds. Our species has benefited greatly from human diplomatic intervention. They helped us resolve the deep current wars that had been raging for 2 centuries. Queen Vextra rose from her section, her insect form towering over the smaller beings around her. Humans use psychological manipulation to control other species. We have proof of their methods. She activated a holographic display showing detailed information about human diplomatic techniques. It was the same information that had been tortured from Ambassador Taemin months earlier. See how they study our psychology, the Mantis Queen continued. How they learn our weaknesses and use them against us. They are not peacekeepers. They are mind parasites that make other species dependent on their services. The hall erupted in arguments. Some species demanded to know if humans had manipulated them. Others defended human diplomatic methods. The carefully planned trial was becoming a chaotic debate. But Ambassador Taemin had been expecting this moment. He stood slowly, and something in his movement made the entire hall fall silent. Queen Vextra is correct, he said, his voice calm and clear. We do study alien psychology. We do learn your weaknesses. We do use that knowledge in our diplomatic work. Shocked murmurs filled the hall. Several human diplomats looked alarmed at his admission. But Taemin continued. Let me explain what we actually do with that information. He activated his own holographic display, showing a recent conflict between two species that had been resolved by human mediation. The crystalline, Hegemony and the gas giant collective were fighting over energy extraction rights in the Vega system. Both species needed the energy desperately. Both species were preparing for war. The display showed the positions of military fleets from both sides. Using our knowledge of crystal psychology, we understood that they value beauty and harmony, above all else. Using our knowledge of gas giant psychology, we understood that they value efficiency and practical results, above all else. The display changed to show the solution that had been negotiated. So we proposed a plan where the crystals would design beautiful extraction facilities that the gas giants would operate with maximum efficiency. Both species got what they needed most. The crystals got energy extracted in a way that enhanced the system's beauty, and the gas giants got energy extracted with perfect efficiency. Representative Zarkul of the Gas Giant Collective spoke up. That solution has worked perfectly for 3 years. Both our species are more prosperous now than before the conflict began. But that proves our point, Queen Vextra interrupted. You manipulated both species into accepting your solution. Yes, Taemin agreed simply. We manipulated them into not killing each other. We manipulated them into sharing resources instead of fighting over them. We manipulated them into prosperity instead of war. The hall fell silent as beings considered his words. The question, Taemin continued, is whether you prefer being manipulated into peace and prosperity or being left alone to handle your conflicts through violence and war. At that moment, as if summoned by his words, alarms began sounding throughout the conference facility. Captain Song Woo-jin quickly activated his communication equipment. Dragon Fleet Command reports Mantis attack vessels approaching Serenitas, he announced. Estimated arrival in 20 minutes. The hall exploded in panic. Representatives began demanding evacuation, accusing each other of treachery and calling for their military escorts. But Queen Vextra remained calm in her section. The humans have led you into a trap, she announced. This conference was designed to gather all major species in one place where they could be attacked or threatened. Emperor Ryu Dalsang's roar silenced the chaos. The only trap here is the one you have laid for yourselves, Queen Vextra. You brought attack fleets to a diplomatic conference. You have revealed your true intentions to every species present. Young diplomat Oh Soo-jin stood up in the human section. Representatives, please examine your tactical displays. The Mantis. Fleets are not just approaching this conference. They are moving toward the home systems of every species that has supported human diplomatic efforts. The displays throughout the hall confirmed her words. Mantis attack fleets were positioned to strike at dozens of different star systems simultaneously. You see, Ambassador Taemin said, his voice cutting through the noise. This was never about putting humanity on trial. This was about the Mantis Collective using this conference as cover for a coordinated attack on everyone who refuses to submit to their rule. Representative Gorthak of the Warrior Caste stood up, his massive form radiating anger. You mean we are all targets? Everyone except the species that secretly allied with the Mantis months ago, Professor Nam Yoonji confirmed, activating her intelligence displays. 17 species provided supplies and information to help plan this attack. They believed they would be spared if they helped eliminate human diplomatic influence. The betrayed species began shouting accusations at their former allies. The conference hall descended into chaos again, but this time the anger was directed at the Mantis Collective and their secret supporters. Queen Vextra realized her mistake too late. She had revealed her military plans prematurely, and now every species in the hall knew they were under attack. Dragon Fleet Command, Emperor Ryu Dalsang spoke into his communicator. Execute Defensive Protocol 7. Protect all conference, attendees regardless of species. But Your Majesty, came the reply. Some of these species betrayed humanity. They are still guests at our conference, the Dragon King replied firmly. We will sort out politics after we deal with the immediate threat. As dragon warships moved to intercept the Mantis attack fleets, something unprecedented began happening in the conference hall. Species that had been enemies for centuries started coordinating their defensive plans. Representatives who had arrived, intending to vote against humanity, found themselves working with human tactical advisors to protect their homeworlds. Ambassador Tae-min watched it all with satisfaction. The Mantis Collective had wanted to eliminate human influence from galactic politics. Instead, they had created the largest military alliance in galactic history, with humanity at its center. The vote on humanity's role in galactic civilization will have to wait, he announced to the hall. Right now, we have a war to win. 6 months after the Battle of Serenitas, Ambassador Tae-min stood in the newly built Interspecies Diplomatic Academy on Earth. Through the large windows of his office, he could see students from 23 different species learning human, diplomatic techniques. The sight still amazed him. The battle itself had lasted only 6 hours. Once the combined fleets of the Galactic Alliance engaged the Mantis forces, the outcome was never in doubt. Queen Vex Tra's ships were destroyed or captured, and she herself was taken prisoner by dragon forces. But the real victory had happened in the conference hall during the battle. Species that had spent centuries fighting each other worked together to coordinate their defense. They shared intelligence, combined their military strategies, and protected each other's vulnerabilities. All of it organized by human diplomatic staff who treated former enemies as allies without hesitation. The Academy graduation ceremony is ready to begin, Dr. Park So-young said, entering his office. She had been appointed as the Academy's director of psychological services, helping both human and alien students recover from the trauma of diplomatic work. Tae-min nodded and walked with her toward the main auditorium. The building itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, designed by crystal architects, built with gas giant technology, and powered by ocean world energy systems. Every major species had contributed something to its construction. In the auditorium, Director General Yoon Ha-neul was addressing the graduating class. "You are the first generation of diplomats trained in the new methods," she told the mixed audience of humans and aliens. "You have learned not just how to negotiate, but how to build lasting peace between species that have never trusted each other." Emperor Ryu Dalsang attended the ceremony through holographic projection from his palace. His massive form appeared above the stage, scales shifting to warm gold as he spoke. 6 months ago, many species believed that humanity was becoming too influential in galactic politics. Today, 41 species have requested permanent human diplomatic advisors. The Galactic Mediation Alliance has prevented 17 potential wars and established 12 new trade partnerships. Tae-min took the stage when his turn came to address the graduates. Looking out at the audience, he saw the faces of beings who had once been enemies, now sitting side by side as classmates. "When I was captured by the Mantis Collective," he began, "they tortured me to learn the secrets of human diplomacy. They wanted to know how we influence other species, how we manipulate negotiations, how we make ourselves indispensable to galactic politics." The audience listened in complete silence. They learned our methods, but they never understood our purpose. Yes, we study alien psychology. Yes, we learn your weaknesses and your strengths. Yes, we use that knowledge to influence your decisions, but we use it to help you make better decisions, not worse ones. He gestured to the mixed audience before him. "Look around this room. 6 months ago, half of you were enemies with the other half. The Silicon Brotherhood and the Warrior Caste had been fighting over territorial rights for 50 years. The ocean, worlds, and the desert clans had never even spoken to each other. The machine republics considered most organic species to be inferior. Murmurs of agreement came from various sections of the audience. Today, you are graduating together from the same academy. You have learned to understand each other's psychology, to communicate across species barriers, to find solutions that benefit everyone involved. You have become what we always hoped you could become, a truly galactic civilization. The applause that followed came from a dozen different types of vocal apparatus, creating a harmony of sounds that no single species could produce alone. After the ceremony, Tae-min walked through the Academy's halls with Professor Nam Yoon-ji. She had become the Academy's chief instructor in xenopsychology, teaching both humans and aliens how to understand each other's mental processes. The Mantis War Crimes Tribunal begins next week, she mentioned as they walked. Queen Vex Tra and her commanders will be judged by representatives from every species they attacked. What sentence are you expecting? Life imprisonment on the prison world of Alcatraz 7. The Alliance voted against execution, deciding that forced labor in service of galactic peace would be more appropriate. They stopped at a memorial wall dedicated to the victims of Mantis attacks. Tae-min's name was there, along with the names of other human diplomats who had been tortured or killed. But it also included the names of thousands of beings from other species who had died in the wars that followed humanity's temporary withdrawal from galactic politics. Sometimes I wonder, Tae-min said quietly, if my breaking was necessary for all this to happen. If the galaxy needed to see what it was like without human diplomats before it could truly value what we offer. Professor Nam considered his words carefully. Perhaps. But I think the more important lesson is that breaking doesn't mean failing. You were tortured. Your spirit was shattered. Your confidence was destroyed. But you rebuilt yourself into something stronger than before. And in doing so, you helped rebuild galactic civilization into something stronger than before. Captain Song Woo-jin joined them, his uniform now bearing the insignia of the Galactic Defense Force, the combined military organization that had grown out of the alliance formed during the Mantis crisis. The quarterly status report is ready, he announced. 17 conflicts resolved through mediation this month. Economic cooperation up 37% across all Alliance species. No major military conflicts anywhere in Alliance territory. What about the species that aren't part of the Alliance yet? Tae-min asked. Most of them are requesting membership. The benefits of having access to human diplomatic services and Alliance protection are too valuable to ignore. Even some of the species that initially supported the Mantis Collective are asking to join. They walked to the Academy's central courtyard, where a statue commemorated the Battle of Serenitas. It showed representatives of different species working together, with human diplomats at the center helping coordinate their efforts. The Dragon King wants to know if you're ready for your next assignment, Captain Song mentioned. Tae-min looked, surprised. I thought my current position as Academy Director was permanent. Emperor Ryu Dalsang is planning something he calls the Great Expansion. He wants to extend Alliance membership to species beyond our current borders. Species that have never had contact with human diplomats. That sounds dangerous, Professor Nam observed. Unknown species might react to contact with suspicion or violence. That's why he specifically requested you for the mission, Captain Song replied. He said that if anyone could handle first contact with potentially hostile alien species, it would be the human who survived Mantis torture and came back stronger. Tae-min stood quietly for several minutes, considering the offer. The Academy was running smoothly now, training new generations of diplomats who would maintain peace across the galaxy. But the idea of making contact with unknown species, of expanding the alliance to include beings who had never experienced human diplomacy, was intriguing. When does the mission begin? He asked finally. In 3 months. You would lead a joint expedition with Dragon military support and scientific staff from 12 different Alliance species. The first target is a cluster of star systems beyond the outer rim where long-range sensors have detected signs of advanced civilization. Dr. Park So-young, who had been listening to the conversation, stepped forward. Are you sure you're ready for something that demanding? The psychological stress of first contact missions can be severe. Tae-min smiled, touching the scars on his face that had become symbols of his survival. Doctor, I was broken by experts in psychological torture and came back stronger than before. I think I can handle meeting some new aliens. As the sun set over Earth's capital city, painting the sky in colors that reminded him of dragon scales shifting from gold to red, Taemin made his decision. The Mantis Collective had tried to break him to weaken humanity's influence on galactic politics. Instead, they had forged him into something stronger, something that could help expand human influence to species that had never known peace was possible. The galaxy was bigger than anyone had imagined, full of species that had not yet learned the benefits of cooperation over conflict. But now they had something that had never existed before. An alliance of species working together, guided by human diplomatic skills, protected by dragon military power, and united by the understanding that diversity made them stronger. Ambassador, Taemin looked up at the stars appearing in the darkening sky, each one potentially the home of species that could benefit from what humanity had learned about building peace. His spirit had been shattered once, but it had rebuilt itself into something that could reach across the vast distances between species and find common ground where none had existed before. The great expansion was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in the story of humanity's place among the stars.